What is up, Dodgers Nation? Welcome to the Dodgers Nation post-game show. My name is Doug McKain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. We're coming at you live from Dodgers Stadium, where the Dodgers lose to the Twins 7-5. Two costly errors, 7 walks for the Dodgers pitchers, and this Dodgers team continue to slide. Thankfully, still a 3.5 game lead in the National League West, but we're going to break this one down. And here joining me is NBC's Michael Duarte, friend of the show. Michael, another frustrating loss for the Dodgers. The pitching from Yamamoto, 36 pitches there in that second inning, but was able to put up 3 scoreless frames after that. It was the costly Miguel Rojas issue. It was an error that could have been a double play, gets him out of the game inning, and you're putting up zeros. You're feeling good about that, but just more misplays. And then Edgardo Henriquez there in the 7th inning, trying to make a play, trying to field it, can't field it cleanly, and it just goes into right field and leads to 3 runs. And Shohei Ohtani hits a home run late, his 4th in consecutive games, first time ever for a Japanese player. But this Dodgers team, very reliant on the home run ball. 10 of their 12 runs this series coming via that home run ball. But just what do you make of another Dodgers loss here?
You know, they say when you're firing in all cylinders, the Dodgers are potentially unbeatable, or at least, on paper, they're one of the best teams in the league if they're firing all cylinders. Well, right now, guys, they're firing on no cylinders, Doug. Literally no cylinders. It seems like the offense, at least the home run ball, the power, the slug, is kind of finally starting to turn, as you mentioned. A lot of the runs coming these last few series have been via the home run ball, but the biggest Achilles heel we've seen through this rough patch, which, let's be honest, has lasted now 3.5 weeks or something like that, or the last 14 games for sure, is defense and the bullpen. And tonight we saw Ben Casparius and Will Klein combine to get 1 out, but allow 6 runs, only to see Enriquez come in and cannon a ball to right field, the right field wall on a chopper back to the mound. That should have been the second out of that inning. So that's a defensive mistake. The Miguel Rojas double play that would have got Yamamoto out of that second inning, instead of giving up 3 runs, is another play we can look at. Mookie had a misplayed error at short. Balls were getting kicked around the outfield, whether it was Outman or Pajes. And we can't just point the finger. I know Teoscar is a turkey for that, right? We like to put our crosshairs on him for his defense, or Mookie at short from time to time. But this just feels like, collectively speaking, this is bad defense all around, bad offense. And as I said in one of my recent articles, when it rains, it pours. And right now it's dumping right now outside.
Yeah, it feels like this team just doesn't have a lot of margin for error. And when you have that inning that Yamamoto had, it's a Royce Lewis ground ball. Miguel Rojas, who throughout his career has been a terrific fielder, it looks like he's trying to make the play before he has it secured. Then the throw goes wide. Mookie can't make a play on it. And then the number 9 hitter Vasquez hits a double that gets the scoring going. And early on, Yamamoto just did not have the feel for that splitter. Thankfully, the fastball was there for him, and Dave Roberts did say he had a good outing after this one. I still think the efficiency wasn't quite there early, but really you need your starting pitchers to really have their B starts at worst, and you really need their A starts when you look at the state of this bullpen. Because you look at the guys that pitch tonight, Will Klein won't sniff the postseason roster, right? Edgardo Henriquez makes his season debut in a tough spot. Alexis Diaz makes his Dodgers debut with the bases loaded in a tough spot. Ben Casparius, who told us after the game that he just could not throw. He said that he hasn't really remembered a time where his velocity has been that low. And he said that he felt okay before the game, but it's almost a situation where he just understands the state of this bullpen and is trying to gut it out for this team. But unfortunately, he just wasn't able to execute and have any modicum of success out there, and it really just put this team back. But also kind of look at the bottom half of that inning there in the second inning, where the Dodgers are able to get some guys on base, and Miles Conforto crowns into a double play. So you got 7 walks, 2 errors, grounding and double plays. It's just the recipe of losing to a not a great team at home.
Yeah, we always say walks will kill you, and tonight walks killed the Dodgers, whether it was Ben Casparius walking guys, whether it was Yamamoto who was walking guys, that will kill you. And, I asked, Doug, you were there, I asked Dave Roberts after the game, mostly about the defense. Like, what does he make of, look, they've been better than the league average defensively throughout the season, even though we've seen some mistakes. They're definitely not elite defense by any means as far as errors in the field and misplays and the normal defensive metrics you can look at, which a lot of it doesn't make the stat sheet. But over the last month, since June 1st, they've been among the league's worst defensively. And I asked what that was about. And Dave said something that I thought was very interesting. He said, those kind of misplays is a focus thing. It's not a talent thing. It's a focus thing. And you can think of, if you're struggling offensively, if you're struggling pitching, you might be thinking thoughts there, right? How do I turn this around? Why did I miss that pitch an inning before? How do we get this better? When things are going bad, these things are on your head, and then your focus tends to lack and go down. And so in this case, a lot of these errors can all just be a snowball and a compounding effect from just how bad things are going. But what I would say is, when you can't hit the ball, and we're talking to like Ohtani has homered 4 games in a row for the first time in his career, but outside of that, Freeman is struggling, Mookie's struggling, Teo is struggling, Tommy Edman was struggling for a while, Pages was struggling. If you can't control the slumps, right? Especially when the slumps are happening simultaneously, but you can control defense, effort. You can control these things, and those are the things they need to lock in and get right and get focused, because even if you're not scoring runs offensively, you can prevent runs defensively, and that's a big part of this. To your point, Minnesota scoring 10 runs. The Twins have never scored more than 9 runs against the Dodgers in the history of interleague play. They put up 10. That's the most they've ever scored against the Dodgers. A lot of that is bad defense, walks, bad bullpen, and that just can't happen right now. It just can't.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, defense isn't supposed to slump, and you saw yesterday they played a clean game and they were able to snap that losing streak. Today, 2 costly errors, but I do still think the number one problem for this team right now is just not having reliable bullpen pieces, and you combine that with offense, as you point out, where outside of Shohei Ohtani and Will Smith, you haven't had consistency throughout this entire season. It was nice to see Andy Pages hit another home run. He tied the game there with a home run there in the 4th inning, but they did have some chance to get back in this one. I mean, Hae-Sung Kim gets a 2-run double to get the Dodgers within 1 run, and unfortunately, they just weren't able to get back into it. I mean, he gets that 2-run double there in the 6th inning, and you're looking at a 1-run game. And then what happens is the bullpen again. Will Klein comes in. He loads the bases in the 7th inning. Then Edgardo Henriquez comes in. And that's a season debut. That's a tough spot. And he really kind of does what you want, right? He induces weak contact on Lewis, but then goes right back to be bobbled it, and that throw just sailed him for him. I mean,
clearing error. This is Little League 101, yeah. Right? You throw a ball way outside the first baseman's range to be able to field it. Only I've never seen a ball literally. We can look at this right now if you guys turn around the Yakult advertisement there right next to the right field foul pole. The ball literally bounced against it. He threw it that hard, that far off target. Those kind of things cannot happen. That is focus. That is not knowing the speed of the runner at the plate, not knowing he had time to even though the ball had a little bit of backspin and kind of died on the grass, if you look at it, and he bobbled it a bit, knowing you have time to make that play and make a good throw. And you don't have to throw it 100 miles per hour at your first baseman to do that. These are the things. And you mentioned the bullpens. Obviously, he came out of the bullpen. This was this weird game of competing bullpens in the case that the Dodgers have a struggling bullpen going up against a bullpen with 2 guys they would love to have on their team here in the next couple of weeks as the trade deadline looms. I'm talking about Duran, of course, who we saw in the 9th, who gave up that 2-run homer to Ohtani, and Griffin Jax, who we saw earlier, who was kind of nasty and got out of some jams. Both Jax and Duran are guys that the Dodgers have called about. The Twins may not be ready to part with them here because I think they're only 5 out of a playoff spot, though there's 5 teams ahead of them they need to jump. But those are 2 guys watching him firsthand tonight. I would love to see in the Dodgers bullpen here 2 weeks from now.
Absolutely. I mean, that's basically where my focus was, because this game felt like it was out of reach. And then you see Shohei Ohtani come to the plate. He hits a home run for the 4th consecutive game for the first time in his career, leads the National League with 36 bombs. Then you're feeling, okay, down to their last out. At least maybe you get some momentum heading into tomorrow's game. But yeah, I mean, those 2 guys, Duran, I mean, you look at the outing he had, gave up some runs. And then Jax, I think, actually looked better than he did, but not at that part of the order, right? Not as high leverage situations. But yeah, I mean, certainly, I do think that, look at where the Dodgers are at in this stretch. I mean, they're 11 loss in their last 14 games. You still have a 3.5 game lead over the Padres in the division. And thankfully, they were able to put some money in the bank and give themselves a little bit of a cushion. But I still think the number one reason for this stretch is just a lack of personnel. And the truth is that they're relying on a very heavily taxed bullpen. They're still trying to work rotation guys back. Tyler Glasnow gets to start tomorrow, has looked good in his return. Blake Snell is nearing his return. Shohei Ohtani continues to ramp up. Still at 3 innings, he's continuing to build his way up. He looks really good outside of that home run that he gave up to Byron Buxton. I still think, though, I mean, the sirens are off. I mean, at this point, I think it's safe to say that if this team is truly all in on this season, there's just too many what ifs on the guys that are coming back. It's, if Blake Trinan will come back and stay healthy, if Michael Kopech's knee will recover and he can pitch like he did in the postseason, if Brusdar Graterol can come back. I think there's just too many ifs at this point. I do think that the Dodgers have lost some leverage a little bit, because even though Tanner Scott told us after the game that the MRI was encouraging and Ben Casparius is hoping that it's just a cramp, the truth is, though, that you're starting to feel the effects of having a starting rotation that only had Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Dustin May essentially make their turns to the rotation. And we're only in July. So I think that they're going to have to add pieces that weren't pitching deep in the postseason last year. And I think the good silver lining all of this is happening before the trade deadline and not after the trade deadline. Saw Andrew Friedman up here. He knows what he has to do if this team really is going to have all the pieces that they need to do something that hasn't been done in a long time. That's win back-to-back World Series titles.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things that you just said that I want to touch upon now. Look, I don't know if we have short-term memory loss, but this team struggled last year. In fact, I think they had lost something like 6 straight or something when they went into Atlanta, and they had the famous team meeting where Dave Roberts literally looked at Walker Buehler and said, "We need you to be Walker Buehler." This was the day that they found out the news that Tyler Glasnow was not going to come back and was going to be out for the remainder of the season, and they were not going to rely, to your point, on if he comes back healthy, we have another starter for the postseason. And so, to my point is these guys need to step up. And that moment, Walker Buehler stepped up. He stepped up throughout the last month of the season. He stepped up into the postseason, huge, I might add. You know, you could argue he's the MVP of the postseason for the Dodgers, outside of Freddie Freeman and Tommy Edman. But for the entire postseason, Walker Buehler was a stud. He stepped up to do that. They need guys to step up now because, to your point, Andrew Friedman built this team and the depth of this team at all positions in the offseason, so we wouldn't have to get hijacked at the trade deadline when the value for trades and for guys in this league is so high since they expanded the playoffs and now you have less sellers and more buyers. And so, look, the if is something that all teams go through. If this person comes back healthy, you can even look at the trade deadline. If this trade pans out, because how many times have we seen trades after the deadline that don't pan out? The bottom line for me is you got 26 guys in that locker room on the active roster. Those guys need to step up. Freddie Freeman, at one point we were talking, is this guy going to bat 350 for the season? Where's that guy? He has to come back. Mookie Betts, you are an MVP. You're part of the MV3 on this team. You need to hold up your weight. Ohtani's playing like an MVP. Freddie was for the first few months. It's now your turn to come back. Be the MVP we know you are. No more excuses, no more moving to shortstop. And is that playing a role? He needs to step up. And look, you're pointing at different things. The one thing I have been telling you since the beginning, and a lot of people that I point to on this losing 11 of 14 stretch, Max Muncy going down on the day Clayton Kershaw got his 3,000 strikeout literally happened right after he gets injured. It was a much bigger deal than we know. We're not to say that Max Muncy is the key to this losing streak, and if he was here, this wouldn't be going on. But what I think it shows is just how much Max Muncy was carrying the team while these struggles were occurring with other guys the 2 weeks prior to that. This is a guy who hit, 3 grand slams in like a week and just insane numbers. He actually had tied for the team lead in RBIs after he had a horrible first 2 months. Max Muncy was hitting today. He was fielding yesterday. This is a guy who is going to come back before that 6 weeks. He's a very important part of the lineup because other teams scheme around him. He's a very target and focus of the lineup. When he's locked in, as far as being able to pick up pitches, get on base, work walks, he's arguably the best on the Dodgers to do that. They need him back. And maybe if they know, hey, a guy can kind of struggle a little bit and you still got Max Muncy to pick you up or you got Paz to pick you up, maybe it'll take the load off these guys, the focus goes away, and they can all hopefully start firing all cylinders again. The last thing I'll say is some of these guys you mentioned, Will Klein, he's not going to sniff the postseason roster. A lot of these guys, you don't even necessarily need the if they come back and healthy. If you can get when Trinan comes back, that could be in the next week or so. Hopefully when Gratterall comes back, when Michael Kopech comes back, you don't need them to pitch bulk. You don't need to do this, but you just need to have your dogs, right? The guys that are going to come out in the high leverage moments in the postseason. There's only going to be 4 or 5 of them. You know, you kind of shrink the roster down to your best guys. Those are when you're going to need them, and we just need them to get back to that par by the end of September.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all those things are true. I think that any game where you have 7 walks, you have 4 unearned runs, you hit into 3 double plays, you have 2 errors. I don't care if you're on full cylinders, everything's clicking during that stretch, you're probably going to lose that baseball game. And I think that from a presentation standpoint, though, it does almost feel like this team is just a little bit in limbo as they get to that trade deadline. Guys wondering what their role is going to be, guys wondering if they're going to be included in deals. Guys like Michael Conforto clearly are playing for their role down the stretch. Guys like Haesung Kim, who had a hit tonight, continues to improve his stock. But I think that what this team needs, a lot of people thought they needed the All-Star break. A lot of people, they need an All-Star break because it was World Series.
I thought they did too, though.
Alex Vesey told me he took 7 days off. A lot of these players told me they took a week off and started training. Then it was spring training Tokyo, and then a whole season where you had that bullseye on your back. I think that this team, it wasn't the All-Star break that they needed. They need the trade deadline, for better or worse. Whether or not they make a big blockbuster deal for a Mason Miller, for a Johan Duran, for a David Bednar, whoever it may be. I mean, keep going on. I mean, like the list goes on for these big ticket guys they go after. But I think that they need a sense of clarity and security, knowing that, hey, this is going to be our roster. This is the best it's going to get. And I think that, look, most teams out there, if we're being completely honest, you go and win a World Series last year, and you come back the next year, and you're still in first place in your division by 3.5 games. You're still right there in the National League and for best record in baseball. You would feel okay about where you're at. But the Dodgers are different in the sense that you have a generational talent in Shohei Ohtani, who, by the way, has hit a home run in 4 straight games. They've also lost 3 of their last 4 games. He's got to feel like he is an angel once again right now. And the truth is, this is a tight window for this nucleus, for this roster that has an infusion of youth this year. But Mookie Betts went 0 for 4 with a walk today. Freddie Freeman has talked about the story where he saw a picture of him in the World Series, and now he's getting that hit cue with his foot. He's kind of not late on things. The truth is, you look at last year and you look at this year, and you go up and down this roster. Freddie Freeman, is he having a better year or worse year? Worse year. Mookie Betts, better or worse? Worse. Will Smith, better. Max Muncy, as you pointed out, doesn't get enough credit. He truly, turns out, is the glue to this team. A better year. But Teoscar Hernandez, Tommy Edman, a lot of these guys that when they joined the Dodgers, a lot of high highs and not as many low lows. There's been some low lows this season. So it's going to be on the guys internally to perform like they're capable of. Because if they don't, it doesn't matter if they bring in Mason Miller or anyone, Johan Duran or Emmanuel Clase. It's not going to matter if these guys that have been struggling all season don't start performing like they have throughout their careers.
Well, we're 9 days away from the trade deadline. You said they need that to perform better, I guess is what you said. But
I just think that, I mean, don't you agree that, like, being in that clubhouse, there's guys, like, I mean, like, even guys that aren't even in that clubhouse right now, the Robleski types. I mean, guys.
Yeah, but 2.5 weeks ago, when this struggle started, that was probably a distant memory for a lot of those guys, the trade deadline approaching. Yes, it's getting closer. Names are being mentioned, but really it's about the Dodgers adding, not losing. And yes, there are guys like Michael Conforto, Dustin May, bullpen guys that could be going out if guys are coming in, of course. And we would even be looking at some younger prospects or Dalton Rushing who, you know, could be going out if a big deal was in place. But I don't really see those guys distracted by it. But what I think this team needs, instead of the All-Star break or the trade deadlines, they need, and excuse my language on your show, they need a freaking kick in the ass. And sometimes that kick in the ass can come from a big trade, to your point, right? So it doesn't have to be July 31st at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. It could be in the next week You go bring in a guy that wants to come win a title that's never won before, a guy like Emmanuel Clase, like we said, just for example, a Mason Miller, like you said, and suddenly that's the kick in the ass you need, the jolt that you need to help. You can call a guy up. Remember, the Dodgers were struggling maybe around 500 at the end of April last season, and what happened? They sent Outman down. They called Andy Pages up. Andy Pages provided the kick in the ass they needed as a prospect, a guy who wanted to play for his playing time for his career. And as we know, Outman never sniffed really the roster and the lineup again. And Pages became a fixture, not only in the playoffs last year, but this year as well. They need something like that. It can't just be Mookie and Shohei switching in the lineup. It has to be a big kick in the ass, whether that's a call up, whether it's a trade, or even maybe something that Blake Snell and Blake Trinan, coming back together could maybe give this team by adding pieces that way. So they just need a kick in the ass somehow. I don't know what it is, but that's what I think they need right now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, I would have had Alex Freeland on this team because he's been playing third base for the last month. Yep. You mentioned it, just kind of having that youth and what that does to a clubhouse. It certainly provides a spark. But the truth of the matter is this is a team that is extremely home run reliant. They're not getting enough run scoring opportunities. Really, over the last month and a half, you're getting about a little over 7 run scoring opportunities per game. League average is just under 10. For the year, the Dodgers have been at like 9.53, which is middle of the pack. Tonight, the Twins, it's 17 at-bats with runners in scoring position. The Dodgers, just 8. So the truth is, this is not the pass the baton style offense that makes it great when it's at its best. It's a couple of guys that are slugging, and if you're slugging, you're winning. If you're not, then, hey, your bullpen is treading water and trying to get over. I think that this is a Dodgers team that truly is in a position where, yeah, you've had a good, successful season where you're defending your title, but I also think, too, that they understand the lulls of the dog days of summer, and I think that all that's going to come together. I really do. I think you just kind of have to really just eat it right now, get the wins where you can. But, I mean, look, it's got to be frustrating for Shohei Ohtani. It's got to be frustrating for Mookie Betts. I mean, I think that still is one of the top 3 storylines of this season. Like, are we in a position where we have 7 years of Mookie Betts where he's going to be a below average hitter, right? I mean, Tommy Edman, you look at the offseason, Tommy Edman wins NLCS MVP, and then they sign him to an extension, and then now he's a below average bat that plays multiple positions. Where have I seen that before? Chris Taylor, right? So, like, you look at this offseason, and it is TBD, but right now, Snell, Tanner Scott, Tommy Edman, Teoscar Hernandez, Blake Trinan, Kirby Yates. I mean, where are the moves that really turned into gold? Now, if all these guys perform like we know they're capable of down the stretch in the postseason, you're never going to talk about May. You're never going to talk about June, July. You're not going to talk about this game. But let's just be honest. Andrew Friedman was kind of doing stuff that he didn't typically do throughout his career, and that is just spend big on a reliever, spend big on an aging starter, and bringing back Teoscar Hernandez. I think he was pressured to bring him back because of the relationship that he had with the fans. Well, right now it's kind of looking like it wasn't the best offseason, and we'll see how that plays out. But right now it's not looking that great. I still believe in all those guys. I want to say I push for every single one of those moves, and I stand by them. But through the course of an MLB season, hey, baseball comes at you fast, and right now it's just you're having some more down years than we would have liked.
Yeah, the thing with Andrew Friedman is he made all those moves for October. And in my opinion, they're still viable in October. The Tanner Scotts, the Blake Snells, as we talked about. But you have to get there. And I think maybe he took for granted just the fact that this team...
Fordo, too. I mean.
Yeah, but I think he took for granted the fact that this team's a regular season juggernaut. Their depth allows them that when guys go down and get ready and rest for October, that they can still plow through every team during the dog days of summer. And one thing we're not used to as Dodger fans is the Dodgers struggling during the dog days of summer. This is usually, as we've talked about over the last decade, where the Dodgers separate themselves from the pack, right? It's these months, the Julys, the Augusts, the late Junes, and they're not doing it this year. And honestly, this is when most teams struggle. And now we're seeing the Dodgers do it here in the dog days of summer as well. But like we talked about with that kick in the ass, Milwaukee called up The Miz, who's been phenomenal, an all-star, pitched in the all-star game, pitched again today, 3 innings. And that team goes on a tear since then, wins 11 straight just recently before losing today, puts them with the best record in baseball. So the good news for all you Dodger fans out there that are thinking this is hopeless right now and are in tears and just as upset and frustrated as all of us are, is that this is baseball, right? You can slump one day and you can go on a tear the next. They really need, as we said, we need to go from firing on no cylinders to get one cylinder up and running, then two, then three. And if we can just get, 4 of the 5 cylinders going at the same time, or if maybe we want to call this a 6-cylinder engine, right? Just get 4 or 5 of those cylinders turning. This team can start winning again, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. And the next thing you know, they're, again, best record in baseball and blowing out. It's that close. But we just are not accustomed to seeing this, not at this time. And so stick with it, because I think it's going to start to turn here. And I think when Max Muncy gets back in the lineup, it's really going to cohesively get that offensive unit where it needs to be. And if he can be hitting the way he was before he got hurt, I think he's going to mask a lot of some of these errors that we're talking about. And I think once the Dodgers get some of these guys back, the guys that they're using in these dog days, and one of them we just saw get DFA'd in Lou Trevino, Will Klein shouldn't be pitching as much anymore. We won't see these guys, and we'll see the guys that probably will be playing in October taking up more of a load here as we go into the tail end of the season as they try to separate themselves, whether that's just locking up the division or locking up the number 1 overall seed, whatever that may be for them.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the hope is that of the cylinders, it's not on a car that's a lemon, right? And that's kind of really where you're at right now with some of these guys. But I still feel very encouraged. I mean, as you point out, when you start to actually say these names and think about these names, I mean, first of all, what is up with the Dodgers putting guys into bases loaded situations that are making their season debuts? I mean, talk about soft landing spots. Whether it be Kirby Yates, whether it be Edgardo Henriquez, whether it be Alexis Diaz, whether it be Will Klein. I mean, tough situations for these guys that ultimately aren't, unless a lot of things go wrong, going to be called upon in those big situations. But the truth is, I mean, like when you just kind of take a step back and you look at where this team is, you look at the fact that from a starting pitcher standpoint, they're in a much better spot than they were a year ago today. This time last year, we were like, is Yamamoto coming back? Are we going to have to rely on Walker Buehler, who was mired in a terrible season? Tyler Glass now out for the year. So, like, at least right now, maybe not all of those guys are going to come back, but at least the potential for the guys coming back are all guys that you would trust to be game 1 starters. Cy Young winners like Blake Snell. You got Yoshinobu pitching at a top 5, top 10 level. You got Shohei back again. So I think when you kind of look at putting together a World Series team and what's important to that, the starting pitching is better right now in July of 2025 potentially than it was in July of 2024. It's the toll that the season last year in the postseason and earlier this year has taken the bullpen. That's my big concerns. But I don't know about you, but for me, I think it's multiple relievers. I don't think that you can be safe with just one. I think you need
Talking about the trade deadline.
to, I mean, let's do our trust tree right now. I mean, the trust tree on this team. I mean,
In the bullpen?
in the bullpen. I mean, Vesia.
Tanner Scott, if he's healthy, but we don't trust him. But
the guy, but let's be honest. I mean,
contract does.
he's on a 4-year, $72 million deal, and he leads Major League Baseball with 7 blown saves. So yeah, if he's on a trust tree, I mean that tree is not a solid oak, right? I mean it's a tree that does not have, like last year it was boom, Evan Phillips, Blake Treinen when he's healthy, like so many guys that you could really look at. And then this time last year, Michael Kopech was that guy that they brought in that changed the game. He had a surgery on his meniscus, so it's going to be
a great example because you talked about Walker Buehler. You think anyone thought Walker Buehler would be in the trust tree this time last season? No.
That's a good point. I mean,
everybody thought Michael Kopech, who had a 5 ERA in Chicago, and as he said, he needed that jolt to come to a team that was competing for a championship, not a team that was competing for potentially the worst regular season in baseball history. So we look at guys like Tanner Scott, Michael Conforto, Kirby Yates is another guy that you could point at, guys that are struggling this year, Mookie Betts, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that come October, they're going to struggle, right? Things change in October. You're now planning for the same team in a 7-game, 5-game, whatever game series where you're going to have all the data. You're going to find everything. Well, right now, you might glance at a sheet when you get to the ballpark and you go about your business here while you're playing 28 out of 30 games. So it's a little different. A lot of these guys you're going to have to trust in the postseason, and you're just going to have to hope they get right, to your point. But what you said is correct. This is not just a oh, you need one guy in a trade deadline. You need, in my opinion, a minimum one high leverage guy, one potential closer. And that's not just because Tanner Scott, in my opinion, might be out 3 to 4 weeks with this inflammation in his elbow, but also because Kirby Yates hasn't panned out. Gratterall hasn't come back. Kopech is on the IL. Tryon has missed a lot of time. Evan Phillips had to undergo Tommy John, is out for the season. You need another closer type guy, at least one or two, in my opinion, and then maybe another guy.
I also look at the bench too. I mean, Kike Hernandez's injury is a little more concerning than it was originally believed to be. We know why they brought him back, for what he can do in the month of October in the postseason. But that bullpen, the bench, I mean, on the margins is usually where this Dodgers team has an advantage. And right now it's, okay, we have the advantage when it comes to the top heavy parts of the roster, the 1 through 4, the 1 through 3 of the rotation. But then it's the back half. I mean, it was good to see Eddie Pajes get going again. It's good to see Freddie Freeman get going again. But I think that this team overall, I think, like I said, the big silver lining is they know what they're up against and what they need to do, I think, to truly maximize this group. But we did get some real positive news after the game. We actually did catch up with Tanner Scott, so I want to play this really quick. Here's Tanner Scott from the Dodgers clubhouse talking about the MRI and just how he's feeling.
The MRI this morning. How did it go? It seems like you, as well as others, are feeling relatively optimistic.
Yeah, better than we expected, and I mean, see how it feels in the next couple days. I mean, positive outcome.
Yeah, when you just in the moment, I have to imagine it was really scary, and kind of thinking it might be a season-ending injury. Just can you describe your own emotions, feeling of relief, and knowing that this could be a shorter IL stint?
Yeah, I mean, definitely when it was happening, I had no clue what was going on because I've never had an arm issue in my entire career, and I felt it on the 1-1 pitch, and then it kept getting worse, and I was like, no clue what it is. So after today, it kind of gave me like a clear head.
Did the MRI show just inflammation, or?
Yeah, inflammation.
No ligament.
No. Ligament's perfectly intact.
Have they given you an understanding, it's just like timeline-wise as to what it could mean?
No, don't throw for the next, I think, 2 days, and then go from there and trending.
You feel confident that you'll be back this season?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How tough is it just watching the bullpen as a whole struggle on a night like this?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, especially now that I'm on the IL, and I mean, I want to pitch, and I mean, things are going to turn around. Not worried.
So to me, that was as encouraging as you could get from him saying, hey, I'm not going to be out for the season, because he didn't feel like he was hiding something. He felt like he was being a straight shooter there. As you point out, he's not someone that has dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career. And look, yes, it has not looked good so far, but one thing that Tanner Scott has done is be available in post for this team. And the truth is that when you add another guy, like his guy was Evan Phillips, right? They were on the same team with the Orioles, right? You lose him, it hurts Tanner Scott, because I mean, there was a point in time where it felt like every single high leverage situation, every closing opportunity, Dave was just by default saying, okay, let me give it to the $72 million man. So I think that you get a better version of Tanner Scott when you make additions to the bullpen as well.
Yeah, when we were in Tokyo together, they put in Scott, and you were like, is this guy going to be the closer all year? And I was like, a lot of guys are going to get saves, but to your point, they just kind of, that was his role, and they put him in there all year long. Now that role might belong to Blake Tryon, or it might belong to Kirby Yates until Blake Tryon comes back. The last thing I wanted to say, Doug, is when these guys start to get healthy, you know, we already got Tyler Glasnow back, Blake Snell, I think I got one more rehab assignment, and he'll be back. That's going to allow, potentially, if the Dodgers choose to do this, you already saw them do it by using Dustin May out of the bullpen to piggyback Shohei Ohtani last night on Monday. So if you can start to get guys healthy, get guys back, cut the fat, trim the fat, so to speak, you can use guys like Emmet Sheehan, who's got some nasty stuff and has shown great signs. You can use him out of the bullpen. You can use a Dustin May out of the bullpen. You can use a Robleski out of the bullpen, as you've done, and you might be able to improve your bullpen just by getting guys back and healthy on the roster, trimming the fat, and moving some of these guys who have some nasty stuff. Instead of having to rely on them to be a starter and give you 5-6 innings, you can get them out of the bullpen for use 1 or 2. Look how well that worked for Ben Casparius early this year. Look how it worked for Jack Dreyer earlier this year. These guys are starters in the minors. They're now coming out of the pen, and their stuff is playing up here. So that can help as well. But I still think you need one or two arms at the deadline, especially one high leverage closer, as you just mentioned, to kind of take that weight and that lift off of guys like Tanner Scott, off of guys like Kirby Yates, and hope for some improvement that way.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. And I think when you look at someone like a Ben Casparius, as you mentioned, we got some sound that we'll play from him as well, is he told me after the game, hey, like, I'm pretty tired. Like, as far as just where this season has been, just because guys like him, Jack Dreyer, all of these guys that have thankfully find every piece of wood you can knock on have been able to stay healthy. But now as you get deeper into this season, you're kind of at a spot where you're saying, okay, even if these guys are healthy now, like the more I use them in July, will they have enough left in the tank in October? And I think that's just a big question that teams like the Dodgers, who are rare, where they're perennial contenders, are going to have to monitor those situations. And I think for you, I mean, you know, I can tell that you're pretty even keel about this. You're not overly concerned about this. And I think that's because you don't eat Panda Express, right? You're not a Panda Express guy. You don't eat that. Like guys like me, we rely on that Panda Express. In this bullpen, they've been worked harder than a Panda Express employee during a Dodgers winning streak. But you mean to tell me no Panda Express for Michael Duarte?
No Panda Express. There was a moment where they had Beyond Orange Chicken that lasted very briefly.
They did?
That
They really did?
Yeah. They
What would you give it on a scale of 1 to 10?
2.
A 2?
But like I encourage these big companies, these fast food places, and these like, you know, chain restaurants, when they add more vegetarian friendly options, I support them for that. You know what I mean? So, but no, not a Panda Express guy. Could care less about the offer, though I know it is a great offer.
You heard Shohei Ohtani, what he told Pat McAfee at the All-Star game, how he was able to gain weight?
No.
Meat. And meat. They're all chanting meat. Good times. But
Well, good thing I don't need to gain weight.
no, you're looking slim and trim, man. Lean and mean. Lean and mean.
But no, I'm not.
Scale of 1 to 10, though. Scale of 1 to 10. Serious question. Like, guys coming back, whether or not you think they're going to make the move, guys they have here. Because, I mean, like, Alexis Diaz, that's a project. Let's be honest. That doesn't feel like he's someone that's going to be making big-time appearances in the postseason, right?
No, he's a project.
He's an absolute project. Scale of 1 to 10, what's your concern long-term about the state of this bullpen?
Well, that's exactly what I was about to say when you brought that up. So it's a double-edged sword, and it's a loaded question because, as you mentioned, guys like Ben Casparius, guys like Jack Dreyer that have been relied upon heavy are starting to get tired now because your starters weren't going 5 innings. Tyler Glasnow had a string of starts where he couldn't even get out like the 3rd inning for a while there. This load that it puts on your bullpen throughout the season is why you see guys like Casparius tired, Jack Dreyer tired. It's why you see them struggling kind of collectively as a unit. That's a bigger concern for the guys that have been here the whole time. Anthony Banda, Alex Vesia, the guys that haven't gotten hurt and really haven't got a rest. The toll that this Dodgers starting rotation has put on them and the amount of innings they've had to eat is going to take its toll. The flip side to that is you can bring in some guys from a trade, hopefully, that can help alleviate some of that. Blake Trinan hasn't pitched in 2 freaking months, maybe longer, so he should be healthy. Blake Snell should be healthy and ready to go for the stretch run. Tyler Glasnow just came back. He should be healthy and ready to go for the stretch run. So hopefully the fact that those guys don't have a lot of tread on the tires, they can help go deeper in games and kind of alleviate some of this bullpen stuff. So to answer your point, I don't have a lot of high hopes for the bullpen as it's currently constructed. But if I project out to what an October bullpen looked like, I have a lot of high hopes in the arms that would be able to be available. And if they're healthy and ready to go, then I have a lot of high hopes in that. And there's no reason all the time off they've gotten that they shouldn't be.
So scale of 1 to 10, you're kind of in the 6-7 range?
I would be like a 3 or a 4.
3 or 4
Currently,
because you think that you trust the guys coming back. You trust that they're going to make moves.
Yeah, I think they're going to make trades. I think Trinan's coming back. I think Tanner Scott, who hasn't, as you mentioned, hasn't gotten hurt, so he hasn't got a break either. He's been relied upon really heavily. I think him getting to shut down for a few weeks, rest that arm, build back up, maybe get to look, because he's always talked about command has been his biggest issue. Look at it from a different perspective. Work on that command where you're not coming in the bottom of the 9th and tie game. And out of these 11 and 14 losses, 2 of them were blown saves by Tanner Scott. I think a couple of them went to extra innings. The defense in some of these games where they're losing 7-6, you know, you can point to run prevention. There are ways that this, losing 11 of 14 could have just been a 7-7 stretch instead, if you just do a couple things differently. So right now, my concern is like a 3 or a 4 because we're still 9 days away from the trade deadline. But projecting out, it's like a 7 or an 8 as far as.
Yeah, I mean, my current concern level, I think it's easily an 8.
But 7 and 8 now, 3 or a 4 then.
I'm not like, I have to see them pull the trigger on not just your Chris Martin type, right, for Zach McKinstry or guys like that or whatever you're looking at.
Coming back, I think the Rangers might move him. That's another name in this top.
And that's very possible, right? Bender, I think, is a kind of a sleeper name out there as well.
Dennis Santana, Kenley Jansen.
No, we went through the California adventure and we're good. I mean, my heart rate's been pretty stable for a couple years now. I think that we're okay without Kenley Jansen, but I truly think that kind of to look at where they're headed from a trade deadline standpoint, it's really through the prism of, hey, could the Dodgers win the World Series by doing nothing at the trade deadline? The answer, I think, is yes.
Yes.
It relies on a lot of big, massive ifs in capital letters. Correct. But there is, like last year, if they didn't trade for Jack Flaherty, they would have won the World Series. I'm pretty confident saying that, 100%, right? 100%. And I don't think that they're in dire straits like that this year. But I also think, too, I mean, the competition in the National League. I look at just the Brewers are a dangerous team that has their number. I mean, what if you face the Miz in the postseason, right? I mean, we don't know.
I don't think you want to play the Brewers in a short series.
Absolutely. And the point I'm trying to make in this is that.
But to your point, they were at David Robertson's showcase. I guess,
and they're always going to do their due diligence.
Sign with the Phillies. That would have been a great ad for where they're at right now. They swung and missed on him. But there's relievers out there. They're on the hunt for him. Like I said, by being.
But here's the thing. Like, I'm okay. Like, here's the thing. Like, I see people out there. Oh, Josue Opala is untouchable. Zaire Hope is untouchable, right? And yes, you never want to trade your top guys for relievers necessarily.
They are untouchable for a reliever, in my opinion. Yeah.
But I don't think there's anyone untouchable. I truly don't. Because the truth of the matter is prospect huggers that are talking about Josue Opala, by the time he's able to help this team, this window with Mookie and Freddie and Shohei Ohtani is either going to be shut or just cracked a little open.
I got 2 words for you. Yordan Alvarez, right? Yordan Alvarez for Josh Fields. And look, at the time, Josh Fields was a very competent reliever for the Dodgers. But would you have made that move now in hindsight?
If that was a different situation, just because they were so desperate for bullpen help, and it's been such a long time since they even made it to the World Series, they were trying to address some needs. And in that, the Yordan Alvarez thing was a very specific thing where they had never even seen him hit or play, right? So, I mean, it's tough to really hold that one on him because there was another guy in their organization that they thought it was one of their higher prospects. So there's definitely.
But my point is that's why you don't trade it for relievers. That's why you don't give a reliever a 4-year, $72 million deal, and that's why Andrew Friedman hasn't done it because.
But that's why I think that
a guy can be lights out 1 year and absolutely awful the next. A guy like Evan Phillips can be DFA'd a handful of times and then become a high-level closer or all-star level closer for a team. That's why you don't.
All of what you're saying is true, right? But I look at it as like, okay, then you're in a situation where, I mean, you got to try to go bigger and try to add a position player along with that, right? And if it's someone like a Mason Miller who's under team control until 2029, the bullpen is becoming an even bigger part of the postseason picture than it ever has been in the history of this game. It's increasingly becoming a bullpen game where you're seeing starters on average go 5 innings per start, and then it's matchups the rest of the way. And if you have dominant relievers that can punch out right-handed hitters, that the Dodgers, frankly, don't have a lot of guys they can truly trust at the moment, then you're in a much better spot because of the roster that you have intact. So, yeah, to your point, yeah, does it hurt when you see Yordan Alvarez and even go all the way back to you look at Watson and O'Neal Cruz and moves like that? Absolutely, it hurts. But here's the truth. The truth of the matter is what is the big kicker in all this is Shohei Ohtani. And I think that has to be the sun to the Dodgers universe, and it has to factor into every move they make. If you had the 2017 roster, the 2018 roster, and you had those prospects, I'd say fine, for sure. But with Shohei Ohtani, not just a generational talent, literally a once-in-a-sport level talent in the peak of his prime, if you're not doing everything you can to win this year, the next year, the year after that, then I think that you're doing yourself a disservice as a franchise. Because the truth is, if the Dodgers went back-to-back this year, let me ask this, Michael. If the Dodgers went back-to-back this year, right? First team to do it since the 2000 Yankees. First team to do it as a National League team since the 70s Reds. And for the remaining 8 years of Shohei Ohtani's career, they don't even make it to the World Series. I still think you could deem this era of Dodger baseball as a ringing success because of how hard it is to win a World Series. So praise over prospects, burn the boats, go all on the 2025 Dodgers because of the roster that you have right now.
Great argument. I'm going to play contrarian here. Say no, you don't do that. And there's a few reasons for that, Doug. First and foremost, one of the reasons Shohei Ohtani chose the Dodgers to be his home and his team for the next 10 years and hopefully the last 10 years of his career, the final years of his career, is because of that farm system. It is because they would be good year after year after year. Not just good 2024 to 2026, but good for the entirety of the 10 years. So a guy who didn't play in the postseason, didn't even sniff the postseason, come even close for 6 seasons, felt like with this farm system, with this team, with the draw that LA is, with the pocketbooks of the Guggenheim Group, he would be in the postseason for 10 years in a row. So no, I don't go all in on 2025 to be the first team to go back-to-back in a sport that it's almost impossible to go back-to-back in to repeat, and mortgage the next 8 years of Shohei Ohtani for his second year. I would not do that. I also would not do that at the trade deadline when the 4 or 5 teams that are sellers are asking for inflation level prices for their rentals or their guys who got a couple years left to team control, when you can go get those same guys in the offseason for half the price. So if you are going to do something like that, and you're going to move on from the Josue De Paulos, from the Zaire Hopes, from Bobby Millers, and some of these guys on your team, you do it in the offseason when you can get more bang for your buck, a.k.a. the Dylan Cease deal that the Padres did in the offseason a few years ago. Those are the moves, or what the Garrett Crochet, what the Red Sox did this past offseason. That's when you make those moves, not at the deadline when you're bidding against 5 other teams who are all just as desperate, and there's no guarantee that those moves get made. Like I said, at some point, the talent you have in-house has to perform to the level that they're capable of doing. So I'm looking at you, Mookie Betts. I'm looking at you, Freddie Freeman. I'm looking at you, Tyler Glasnow. I'm looking at you, Blake Snell. You talk about the All-Star game. Some guys at the All-Star game told me Blake Snell has the nastiest pitch in all of baseball. Everyone was talking about Scooble's changeup, but Blake Snell's curveball is up there with one of the best in the game. And he's also a second-half pitcher. We need him to come back and play to that level. And I don't think you need then, to mortgage this season to go get, I don't know, whatever guys you want. You want to go get Eugenio Suarez?
I'm not asking for much. I want a top level league closer. I really do. I want a top level. And to getting, that was a fantastic point that you made about the sustainability of winning. But I also will point out too, we don't know the future of the CBA. We don't know if there's going to be a lockout. We don't know if there's going to be a salary floor. And we know that the owners, they can't be thrilled with the Dodgers' ability to defer money and build this roster and basically put together $400 million rosters every year. There seems to be a lack of competitiveness, and that's how owners think. But then look at the Brewers, right? Look at the Cubs and look at teams out there that be able to develop talent, stuff like that. But yeah, I think for me,
the Mets were 2 wins away from the World Series last year. Obviously,
they had the highest payroll
here at this stadium. We snuffed that out, but they were 2 wins away. Look what their record was this time last year, right? They were way out of the hunt, and they made a second-half push. They were a wild card team they had to go down to the final game of the season just to get into the playoffs and get in the wild card spot over the Braves, and they made a nice run, right? So my point is like, baseball is a marathon of ups and downs. It's a roller coaster ride. Right now we're in a down. This team has put together way more runs. Runs not on the board, but runs as far as winning streaks are concerned. Throughout the course of the season, they have guys that they can do it. They have veterans in that locker room that will turn it around. I wouldn't blow it up just because we're frustrated and feeling helpless right now. I don't mean blow it up completely, but you know what I mean. Trade some of these guys. But to your point, you got guys like Esteury Ruiz who could be moved. You got guys like James Outman and Bob.
Like Esteury Ruiz.
You could move Dustin May because he's a free agent at the end of the year. That's not mortgaging your farm system. That's not mortgaging the DePaulas. That's not mortgaging those guys for the future. Look, they went out, to my point, they went out and they traded Ryan Pepio and, help me out.
Johnny DeLuca.
Yeah, Johnny DeLuca. Someone said Johnny DeLuca might have been untouchable. Obviously, Pepio wasn't. To go get a guy like Tyler Glasnow, who's an all-star, and now he has a chance to redeem himself for...
Let's read some of these comments. Absolutely. They said, get a room already. They said I look like I drink water from the water fountain with my whole mouth. It's a funny thing. We like to roast each other.
It's a good point.
Claudia, what up, D-Mac? Yeah, guys, this is a live show. We are in the booth here at Dodgers Stadium. The number one, D-Mac needs a cup of coffee. Yeah, it's been a long day. But we got to, okay, here goes my World Series prediction. Remember, folks, you're already here for the 2025 Fall Classic. Wow, that is a big teaser. I think it's the Astros versus the Dodgers. I remember from another take there. But honestly, yeah, Ben Casparius. Yeah, there you go. Ben Casparius. That's one thing we like to call him on this show. But yeah, we'll get out of here on this note. We'll play that a little clubhouse interview that Ben Casparius did with us, and is very encouraging. But final thoughts here from Dodger Stadium is not fun right now, but this is going to pass. Yeah, well, you clearly don't. But the storm will pass. Trade's going to be made. Guys are going to get healthy. This Dodgers team is in a much better position than it feels like for a team that's lost 11 of their last 14 games. But you just got to weather the storm, get back on track tomorrow with Tyler Glasnow on the mound. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Dodgers Nation post-game show. So on our way out, we're going to play Ben Casparius live from the Dodgers clubhouse after the game, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning for Dodgers Dugout Live. Go follow this man. Read all of his stuff. This is Michael Duarte. If you don't know, of course you do. You know him, you love him. NBC Sports. He was featured on NBC recently. There you go. Yeah, Dodgers over Astros in 7, and
I like that. That'd be a fun little...
looks like a Dodgers Blue Jays. That's a lot of blue, and that'd be a nice little Shohei Ohtani subplot.
Why does nobody want Dodgers Tigers? Why is nobody saying Dodgers Tigers?
Wouldn't be a sexy matchup, but still kind of an old school traditional one. Tarek Scooper would be cool. It'd be fun. I think if I'm Rob Manfred, if I was about to rank the World Series that I would want from a television standpoint, you still want Dodgers Yankees the rematch. I think that still would play. Not as much sizzle as last year, but Max Fried would be an interesting addition. Aaron Judge, one of the game's biggest stars, right behind Shohei Ohtani. Then after that, I do think the Astros-Dodgers provides the most compelling subplot, even though you don't have Bregman and Correa and Springer and AJ Hinch and all the trash cans. By the way, do you think they're going to retire that trash can if you're the Astros? Like, why haven't they retired that trash can yet? Don't you think they should?
Needs to go in the Hall of Fame. Yeah,
absolutely.
Needs to go in Houston Hall of Fame.
I mean, Pete Rose could be eligible soon, so I mean, we'll see if he goes in. But yeah, RIP. But all right, guys, that's going to do it here from Dodgers Stadium. Dodgers lose to the Twins 7-5, but they'll look to get back on track tomorrow, a 1:10 afternoon getaway day for the Dodgers. You love these comments. Yeah, we get a lot of commenters. Jay Bullitt, Denny's needs to partner with UFC. I mean, it goes off the rails very quickly here. Yeah, Roki was doing a Coldplay. Yeah. Guys, should we do the Coldplay? No, okay, that's where the show is going to end here. But he slithered out here. He slithered out there. All right, but all right, guys, talk to you tomorrow. And here's Ben Casparius from the Dodgers clubhouse. And until next time, think blue, bleed blue, and I'm out.
Actually, I felt good in warm-ups. Kind of felt it in the back end of on the game mound and everything. And I've dealt with stuff like this before, gotten through innings, and it kind of got to the point where I couldn't, I wasn't able to get my legs at all. I think just trying to find it like that, I'm kind of worried about it, getting worse, or it got to the point where I just, I couldn't compete.
And at what point during the appearance did you really start to feel it? Like which batter?
I think the end of the first batter, I thought, I felt the foot give out a little bit, that crampy feeling and just not being able to kind of get into my legs, and I think it just kind of got progressively worse from there.
At that point, I mean, a lot of people talk about like compensating and just injuring something else. Is that on your mind when you're out there, just making sure there's not more damage?
I kind of felt a little bit just sped up with the idea of like, hey, if I'm moving a little bit differently, or if I'm trying to kind of compensate, I could hurt something else. So it's a long year. It's something where kind of make sure I get out of there, at least take care of things before it escalates or gets worse. So it was kind of on my mind.
Yeah, and Tyler has dealt with some cramps, Tyler Glass now. Do you think you're going to talk to him, maybe get some pointers on just kind of how to deal with it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it happens for a lot of guys. Hopefully it's not a strain. We'll, hopefully find out in the morning, but yeah, I'll definitely talk to him.
Hey, you've had yourself, a really awesome season. You've been able to post, and you've been one of the pitchers that they can rely upon. I mean, just how much of it is just you wanting to just get back out there and just help this team any way you can?
No doubt. That's the plan going forward. Just be there for the guys and be able to compete. So hopefully it's not a crazy setback, and we're back to, back to business and soon enough.
And so the plan is tomorrow MRI and just kind of go from there?
Yeah, I think so.
What does your gut kind of tell you kind of feeling?
I think it kind of just depends on how I wake up feeling. If it's pain, it's it could be a strain, whatnot. But